Welcome, everyone, to our Salon number 51. The Maternal Gift Economy is Deeper Than Ethics in the Maternal Gift Economy Breaking Through series, hosted by the International Feminists for the Gift Economy. I'm Letitia Layson, your moderator. We're excited to have Genevieve Vaughan sharing from her latest research and writing. I'm going to just do a short intro to Jen, maybe one or two sentences, because most of us already do know who she is. Genevieve Vaughan is an independent researcher who lives part-time in Italy and part-time in Texas. She created the multicultural All Women Activist Foundation for a Compassionate Society that was open from 1987 and closed down in 2005. She is the founder of the Sept Temple in Nevada, in the Nevada desert, that was founded in 1992, and we're happy to say is still ongoing with two wonderful priestesses that are holding down the temple there. She co-created the network International Feminists for a Gift Economy in 2001, which is ongoing. Her foundational book, Forgiving, a Feminist Criticism of Exchange, was published in 1997 with several other books, anthologies, and her latest book is The Gift in the Heart of Language. So please welcome Genevieve Vaughan.
Thank you so much, Letitia. I'm so happy to be able to do this salon today. I'll just get started pretty quickly. Diane, if you want to go ahead and put the, okay. I felt a little bit afraid after I made up this title, but I really think it's true. So I'm going to try to justify what I said in this title as during the presentation. Go ahead, please. Okay. We're in a terrible time. So war, starvation, disease, floods, fires, heat waves. And the countries that we're just watching on television, and like Libya and these terrible disasters, Morocco, Maui, Afghanistan, Yemen, Palestine, Syria, Ukraine, it just goes on and on. Almost every day there's a new disaster. And the thousands and thousands of refugees that are killed on the way trying to get to some safe place, someplace where they can make at least a minimal living for themselves and their families. So in this time, it is really critical. And so I have to ask, is it even possible or desirable to be individually ethical in a world that is matricidal, that is falling apart? I say it's matricidal because all the values of care and maternal gifting are being contradicted. And this is killing Mother Earth and the ability of all animals and humans to mother and to survive. If we look at ethics as a guide for individual behavior, we must realize that in front of the tragedies that we are seeing every day, there is no easy individual ethical behavior that we can undertake from the relative safety of the so-called first world. Nothing to do but to contribute to a fund to help, or a fund to elect someone who will help, or join protests or make speeches. However, there is little chance that these activities, however well-intentioned, will make a difference. We need to create a paradigm shift away from the capitalist economy and its values to another economy, a maternal gift economy that is already functioning within us, but that for now, on a large scale, is giving free gifts to the market economy. There is no possibility of being ethical within the exchange paradigm. In fact, capitalism itself is unethical. It functions by surreptitiously taking gifts, the gifts of surplus labor, that value of the labor time over and above the amount that is paid to the worker, the gifts of women's unpaid labor in the home, and all the gifts of nature, water, air, soil, that are depleted and not renewed. In 2012, using time use criteria, feminist economists has estimated the USA's 2011 gross household product at $11.6 trillion, as compared to a GDP of $13.3 trillion. That's almost equal. So a free economy that's almost equal to the exchange economy, the market economy. If we add to this free production the global ecosystem services, which have been estimated at some $125 trillion a year, compared to the monetized economies of 75 trillion GDP, we can see how the market economy is actually nurtured by a sea of gifts. The values that come from the capitalist society we are in have not been enough to keep us from destroying each other and the planet. In fact, they concern the choices the individual makes about her own behavior according to her best knowledge of the situation. But living in capitalism, the negative side of our success and prosperity is often hidden from us systemically. So while our choices may be ethical for us individually, they are based on falsehoods and harm, so they are unethical in the bigger picture. The maternal gift economy is a free provisioning economy based on giving to needs. It is seen best not as an ethic, but as the basic human operating system. It is learned by children from the maternal giving model and their own creative receiving during early epigenesis, when experience selects which aspects of our genes are activated. The giving and creative receiving interaction is the basis of communication, the original framework for language, care, and community. And it is established prior to exchange, both in phylogenesis, in indigenous societies, and in ontogenesis, in market societies in the domestic sphere. That is, in the evolution of the species, or the history of the species, and the history of every life. As our operating system, giving and creative receiving is deeper than ethics, which can be seen as only one of the programs that is put into our mental computer after quid pro quo exchange contradicts gifting. Ethics is used to mitigate the negative effects of exchange, capitalism, and patriarchy. Even the ethics of care takes place inside the market paradigm. The unilateral gift economy may seem unrealistic, but actually it is commonplace. And in fact, it is universal, because without it, we die in infancy. And its universality means that the model of unilateral giving and receiving is there in all of us as mothered children who have grown up to be adults of diverse genders. Many men have been deviated away from the unilateral model because a non-maternal gender role has been given to them, though they had previously identified with their mothers when they were small. Here's a speculation I have about gender. In patriarchal capitalist countries, because of the sexual division of labor, rather than having caregiving as a role, most boys have been removed from the gift economy and given exchange and the relation to a non-maternal standard instead. They repeat the path of the product that from a gift becomes a commodity. They find their identity in relation to a male standard of competition and domination, which is very like the relation of commodities to money. This renders them vulnerable to values of capitalist patriarchal machismo, where they try to be the powerful standard who replaces and dominates the gift-giving mother. Exchange is a kind of sex change of boys who move away from the female maternal model into the market to become non-mothers, and of girls who now also do the same thing, but without giving up their potential maternal identity, so maintaining the so-called double burden. Until now, most of ethics has been a product of male, that is non-maternal thinking, and most women gift givers have been giving to their children and to males. Both women and men have been giving gifts of free labor upwards in the capitalist market pyramid. The unilateral giving and receiving relation continues throughout life in many ways, in breathing in and out, in speaking and listening, and perceiving and understanding, in nurturing acts of all kinds, and the creative reception by others. I submit that the unilateral giving and creative receiving, its repetition, like passing it on, giving it forward, and its many variations still form the human relations of mutuality and solidarity upon which viable communities can be formed and are the basic underlying structure of communication. If we understand ourselves this way, perhaps we can act this way. Our human world is originally a given world because our experience of it is structured by the maternal gift economy of early childhood. It has a logic. If A gives to B and B gives to C, then A gives to C. That's how the gifts unite people. When the motherer gives to the child, she gives value to her by implication. If the child had not been valuable to the mother or motherer, she would not have given to her. I call this gift value, and I believe the child receives it with increased self-esteem. The mother also gives gift value to the things that she gives to nurture the child. The Like Me Bridge. According to infancy researcher Andrew Meltzoff, children go through stages in the development of a self through intersubjective interaction, creating a like me bridge with their caregivers through proprioception, projection, and self-other body mapping in an external or internal companion space. This interactivity is registered and facilitated by mirror neurons that allow each member of the dyad to simulate the experience of the other, at least to some extent. And Meltzoff says, the recognition of self-other equivalences is the starting point for social cognition, not its culmination. We are not born social isolates. We are fundamentally connected to others right from the start because they are seen as being like me. Here's another typical interaction that has been studied by the Harvard Center for the Developing Child, but also by many others. It's called serve and return, like tennis. Serve and return is a typical back and forth, like me interaction between mothers and children, in which one smiles or vocalizes and the other responds. This is an important stimulus for the brain during the epigenetic period in which it is making 1 million new neuron connections every second. Think of that. Here's my only image for the whole presentation, but this is what serve and return typically is. Go ahead. Giving and receiving create a bonding or attachment relation of solidarity and trust. We absorb the maternal model in infancy by the like-me relation with the motherer and the serve and return interaction, both of which function according to imitation and are facilitated by mirror neurons. The positive model of serve and return is not quid pro quo exchange, but a dialogue that establishes interpersonal identity. However, even the words used to describe exchange, do dest, I give so that you might give, recall serve and return. I believe that the relation of identity between money and commodities replays this interaction of mother and child, and that this is one psychological reason why monetized exchange has become so important as the main social nexus in our society. In fact, exchange for money is a psychosocial mechanism of evaluation that permits everything from our self-worth, that permeates everything from our self-worth to the worth of corporations and nations. And we treat it as completely natural and obvious. In the market, the maternal gift model is contradicted by quid pro quo equal exchange, which takes over the interpersonal space previously created by the serve and return relation that was so important in the child's identification with her mother. Thus, commodity exchange, the equation between the product and money, is made central instead of the like-me equation between child and mother. This is a value-altering mechanism. This occupation of the serve and return relational space by quid pro quo monetized exchange is a value-altering mechanism that discounts giving and receiving construction of identity by replacing it with a relation of equality of projected value between objects. And in market-based society, the mother-child provisioning relation is dependent upon quid pro quo exchange for the means of giving. So exchange is placed in the foreground. It is normalized, while giving and receiving is backgrounded, unseen, dependent, infantilized, or exceptionalized. The act of quid pro quo exchange logically cancels the unilateral gift and makes it invisible. Gift value, the value of the other, the receiver, is annulled because we give a product only in order to receive money, or money to receive a product. The value of the other becomes the value of the product as expressed in money relative to other products. Gift value turns into exchange value or is replaced by exchange value. The child-mother-child dialogue of smiles and vocalizations is now replaced by the product of one exchanger as a first gambit and money as a response by the other. The relation between things takes the place of relations between people, and that's one of the things that Marx described commodity exchange as doing. We recognize exchange as normal because we did serve and return as babies with our motherers, and as motherers, we do it with our babies. When exchange, giving in order to get back, takes place, it seems completely natural. However, the consequence of this normalization of exchange and the diminishment of giving-receiving is that we don't see that the exchange economy is taking free gifts renamed profit. In fact, it is completely dependent for its functioning on the gifts that are given to it through the foregrounding of the exchange process and the backgrounding of giving. In fact, the market is just as dependent on gifting for its profit as the gift economy is dependent on the market for the means of giving. In our everyday commercial activity, we are contradicting the unilateral maternal gift economy continually on an individual, local, national, and international scale, and we do not know it. If we want to foster the emergence and reevaluation of the unilateral gift economy, this needs to be accompanied by the restriction and devaluation of the economy of exchange. Otherwise, the context of exchange makes gifting sacrificial, disempowering the givers and the whole mode of giving, making it seem impractical and impracticable. In fact, giving is very difficult when everyone else is exchanging and making profit on hidden gifts. Even if one is buying something to give or the other is selling something in order to get money to buy something to give, the actual giving and receiving is displaced out of the picture. The gift economy and the exchange economy are locked in a parasitic embrace where gifts travel as profit upwards into capital that is then reinvested to garner more gifts from motherers, from workers, surplus labor, and from nature. It is not just the means of production that are owned by capitalists, but the means of giving. So this is now the next part is about the exchange abstraction that works in with the first part as well. Alfred Sohn-Rethel was a Marxist who proposed that monetized exchange causes a real abstraction, an abstraction that happens in real life that makes us think in abstract ways. Exchange for money abstracts from all the qualitative differences and particularities of commodities and unites them all as abstract value in exchange. According to Sohn-Rethel, generalized abstraction is not just a naturally occurring capacity of the human mind, but it derives from the special and particular character of commodity exchange, which is what he calls the social nexus, the main mode of interaction of our society. Sohn-Rethel sees this abstraction as happening first with the coinage of money in ancient Greece and its reflection in the pre-Socratic philosophers, especially Parmenides, and again with the movement of capital as the model for the concept of inertia as theorized by Galileo and Newton at the threshold of modern science. He also sees the Kantian a priori as derived from the abstraction of exchange and money. That is, what we do in the main economic interactions of our daily lives is projected into our ways of conceptualization without our realizing it. I am talking about this because I believe that the maternal gift economy is what exchange abstracts from, resulting in the exchange abstraction that, according to Sohn-Rethel, is the basis of the abstraction of scientific thinking. And I would add the basis of abstract philosophical ethics as well. In particular, it is the operating system of the unilateral satisfaction of needs and the creative reception of the need-satisfying gifts that is left aside by the abstractions of science and ethics. The opposite of abstract is concrete, but the maternal economy is prior to the exchange abstraction. So the thinking is neither abstract nor concrete, but integrated before separation. This gives those who work in the maternal economy a perspective or a standpoint that is different from those who only work for the market in manual or industrial labor, or in finance, government, or academia. Son Rathel's major book is called Intellectual and Manual Labor, but maternal gifting work is both and neither. Therefore, the perspective from this source should be seen as more sane than the abstracted or concretized thinking influenced by the exchange abstraction. Some of us work in both modes or all three, and so we may have all three perspectives, which may be an advantage for understanding the system and what to do about it. Son Rathel has been criticized for concentrating on the act and process of exchange itself and less on the process of capitalist production and circulation. I agree that those processes are important, but as I have been saying, I think that exchange itself, especially for money, is negative and a trap because it negates human unilateral gift giving and gift value, the implied value of the receiver, and replaces them with the use value and exchange value of the product. Ethics is undermined in our society by the equation of value in market exchange as the model for equality. I have just been saying how many gifts are taken through this equation in the market. It is a false standard upon which to measure human value. Although everyone is said to be equal before the law, this is contradicted every day in practice. Ethics is an attempt to rein in the worst effects of capitalism. However, the idea of guilt as the preparation to pay brings us into the mode of exchange and confirms the exchange paradigm. Categorization as good or evil makes us vulnerable to being bought by reward and punishment. We need to strengthen the gift paradigm by understanding it and contrasting it with exchange. We need to devise a way other than the capitalist market to survive and thrive. We need to recognize ourselves as homo donans, the gifting beings, who have been alienated into exchange, and to the extent that we, in the form of our leaders, the people who have been most successful in our capitalist society, are creating havoc daily with their unaware, self-interested, giftless decision-making, causing wars, starvation, and death for billions of humans and the more than humans, as well as the apocalyptic destruction of the climate, the water, the air, the fire, and the whole of Mother Earth. Not knowing what we are doing through leaders is not acceptable. The planet and all her children are wounded. The deep maternal gift economy requires a solution, a healing, and fast. Shedding Homo economicus sapiens and returning to Homo donans. Generalizing the maternal gift economy is not the same as ethics, or even care ethics inside capitalism. It is an alternative paradigm that begins before the market, both ontogenetically in the history of every life and phylogenetically in the history of the different peoples of our species. In fact, many native people before colonization and even afterwards had and have gift economies where mothering is respected and gifting is a widespread principle. People in the dominant groups, successful people, need to realize that they may be infected with the values of domination and quid pro quo, patriarchy and exchange that have caused the problems we are facing now. This is a systemic difficulty, and they have been infected by it. But all of us are mothered children, and perhaps they and we can return to the altar-centric, need-satisfying maternal model that we all share and that can save us. We are actually a mothering species, Homo donans and recipients. We function according to giving and receiving, and we do it in community, though now we are caught in the trap of exchange and the exchange abstraction, and we do not know what to do. I think we are mostly in denial, and that because we don't have a solution, we don't dwell on the problems. We look the other way. But we need a paradigm shift outside of capitalism and patriarchy, a new and compassionate understanding of what is happening, a wide coalition of those who care, who can understand what we are doing wrong and figure out how to change it. I have a little idea just to conclude. I heard a Japanese woman at a peace camp one time say that we should stop everything for a year and think about how to make things better. COVID made many of us stay inside in the last years. If it happens again, let's use the time to organize widespread collective thinking about what is wrong and what to do about it. Blessed be. The end.
The end. Thank you, Jen.
The beginning.
If we could only end the infection by the parasitic market economy by just being aware of your words, it would be such a gift for sure. But I understand it's not that easy. Yes, definitely. Thank you, Jen. That was very dynamic and powerful. Really looking forward to these next couple of articles that you are completing and your presentation in October in Germany, because I know you're going to be continuing to think along these lines. I see that we have more people who've entered into the room, and I just want to remind you to enter your questions either in the Q&A and your comments into the chat. But let's check in with Liliana to see if there are any questions that have come up.
Yes, there's a question in the Q&A from Mary Long, and she says, please define ethical.
Well, there are lots of philosophical definitions of ethical. I think of Kant's idea of the categorical imperative, which says that you should be able to universalize what you do, to act so that your action could be done by everyone and approved by everyone. Well, my response to that is that the unilateral gift economy is already being done by everyone, and we just don't know it. And so we have to not generalize it, but realize that we're all already doing it and that it is already universal, and then promote it within what we do ourselves.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana, do you see any other questions that have come up?
No, but I have a comment from Judy Ashby that she said about when Jen was talking about what happens to the boys. And she said that her 24 and 25-year-old sons have both spoken with me exactly about this, that they could relate of what happens when they stop being who they were and they're giving the exchange.
Wow. Well, I'm so happy to hear that, because it's a great example. I'd love to talk to you and to them more about it. Any other questions?
Liliana, I think there's one more that came into the
Yes. There's one from an anonymous attendee. Regarding your comments on gender, I have wondered if the younger generation expansion of gender identities and no-binary identities is a sign of hope. Can you expand?
I think you're right. I think it is. but it's done in a sexual way instead of an economic way. And it's an opening towards the gift economy, I believe. Maybe in some ways a refusal by people that are born male to take on what I call the masculated identity, the identity that has pushed them away from the maternal gifting identity, the identity that identifies with the male macho dominant ideal. And on the other hand, that women who have been, or people who are born women who changed their identities also are, let's say, tired of being unseen and unappreciated as many of their mothers were. And so I think there's a coming together that in a way abstracts from the economy and finds a link with how we're doing gender. And maybe it really is an opening towards substituting the capitalist economy with the maternal gift economy. I think it is a bridge.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana?
Yes. I have a question from Lynn Fairfax, and she asked, what is gift value?
Well, that is what I have named. I don't. What I see is happening in giving. So when you give unilaterally to somebody to satisfy their need, you're giving value to them. And that value is received by the person as confirming their worth, their personal worth. So it's a transmission along with the gift of an appreciation of the person that gets it. And I think that's a very important piece of the puzzle that we don't really see, because when there's exchange, that doesn't happen. The exchange value and the use value of the commodity, the product, are the kinds of value that they're said to have, and those cancel the gift value that the mother would have given to the child, for example, or even the person that made a product that then they gave to the child, like the mother baked a cake and gave it to her child. That transmits gift value through the cake as having a value that is transmittable to the child. So there's a whole area of this gift value that isn't visible. And we only think in terms of economic value, we only think of use value and exchange value. And exchange value is the major thing that is in money. And that is kind of the ruler of the whole situation. But I also think, and this is my speculation, that since the capitalist economy works by taking gifts, and those are given in the end to the capitalist as monetary gifts, that gift, although it's not seen, and actually seems to the capitalist that he's deserved that money as profit, that gives him value, or her value. So there's a kind of an ego affirmation in making a profit and getting these hidden gifts. And that, I believe, that is one of the bases of greed. That is, we are all individuals isolated out there in the public, and when we make more money than anybody, we feel like we've gotten more value, and that is because the gifts that have been given to make that happen, we've received those more than other people. So that it gives us more self-esteem.
Thanks, Jen. Ania Martin says, love that we're a mothering community by nature. Absolutely beautiful. Yeah. And I might add that Darsha Navarez and Gay Bradshaw have written a book, co-authored a book, The Evolved Nest, and they talk about that in their book. We had them on last week, so the recording is up if you want to take a look at that. Liliana, do you have another question for us?
Yes. Also from Lynn Fairfax. She asked, what is alter-centric?
Well, alter-centric is another word for other-oriented, centered on the other. And it is a word that a researcher, infancy researcher named Stein Broughton from Norway it uses. And it is, I use it because it is not as emotionally charged as other-oriented or altruistic. It just shows that the pathway of the gift is towards the other, and that it's satisfying the need of the other, not egocentric. And that's I think that a lot of language, like we satisfy other people's communicative needs by using words that are centered on the other's needs, communicative needs. Like if I want to talk to you about cat, I have to use the word cat to satisfy that alter-centric, satisfy that need of yours. And it's not emotionally charged. It's just the way it is, because I can't do it otherwise. I can't satisfy that cognitive need about what I'm talking about. So there are satisfactions of needs that are not necessarily sentimentally or emotionally charged, but there are many that are. So
Thanks, Jen. I see more questions are coming in, Liliana.
Yeah, there's a comment from Patricia Hurd, and she goes, unilateral giving as the fundamental of being makes me think of unconditional love. By the way, I am really grateful for your framing ethics as a tool to try to reduce harm within the domination-based exchange paradigm. Ethic always made me wonder, because so much violence has been done and is done in the name of ethics in so many cultures.
Yeah, I think that unilateral giving is a mode of love, but it can also be practical, like I was just saying, alter-centric. It can also be just the way things are, the way things happen. And so we need to look at it in both directions, and also not over evaluate unilateral giving as if it were saintly every time we do it. It's normal. That's what I'm trying to say.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, if we can only deeply remember what normal is. That's without the overlay of patriarchy. So, right. Okay, Liliana.
Yeah, I have a question from Mary B. And she's asking, can you talk about the overlooking of the maternal gift economy and the increase of femicides and domestic violence in the world today? For example, in Mexico, there is 11 women that get killed by their partners, their male partners daily. And so she's asking about the relationship between that and the lack of noticing of the maternal gift economy.
Yeah, I think it does have to do with this kind of estrangement of men away from their maternal model, and that they become, I would say, alienated from the gift economy, and then they have to find this other identity, and it turns out for so many of them to be a macho, dominant identity, and then I guess they punish the maternal gift economy. I guess they punish women because they are not themselves anymore the women's babies. I don't know, I mean, this is my just speculation. I don't know. Of course, it's horrible, and it's very widespread. And also, I have to say, I think that the male identity is not very satisfying for the men who are trying to achieve it. And it doesn't have the kind of human relations, it doesn't create the network of human relations that gifting does. And if men do get those networks, it's by gifting anyway, even though they are not mothers.
Thanks, Jen. I'm just going to put a little plug in here. In 2 weeks from now, Jen will be answering your questions as well. So you can, if things come up in the next couple of weeks, you can write them down, but we're going to do a little bit of change out for our format. But in the meantime, Liliana, I see that there are more questions.
Yeah, and then from Dylan Fairfax, is the relation between things take the place of relation between people? How do we give value or return to celebrating relation between people?
Well, that is done by gifting, and it's done in ritual, and it's done in solidarity. It's done by changing the society that we're in, changing the paradigm, learning to do things different. We really can't even be happy now. There's no way to be happy when the things that are happening are going on, because in some way we're responsible for that, even if it's not direct. So there has to be, the happiness has to come through changing the paradigm, and other people want to do that as well, so we can bond with each other through that, and also through activism, if that is something that you can do. Sometimes it helps, sometimes it doesn't, but that's really why I had that little idea at the end of my talk. We need to have collective thinking about how to get out of this, what to do. It needs to be widespread with lots of people with lots of ideas, so also the collective unconscious can get into it. We all want to get out of it. We don't want our planet to be destroyed. We don't want refugees to be killed in the river by some horrible metal sword things that the governor puts in there. I mean, it's just, and we don't want them to die in the Mediterranean as they're trying to cross and nobody's saving them. And even when they get where they're going, we don't want them to die when they get there because they don't have anything, any work or anything to do that they can survive with. So it's just too many tragedies are going on. and especially with the planet itself, herself, nature.
Thanks, Jen. Yes, we need to get many people involved in the conversation and sharing their solutions. That would be perfect. I see more questions, Liliana.
Yes, from Amber Michael. Money is often equated with capitalism, but money is a tool or agreement that is used a certain way under capitalism. Money does many things, like serve as a placeholder of value of resources. What ways, if any, do you imagine money being conceptualized or used in the maternal gift economy?
Well, I really don't think we need money. I really think that we have to do away with it. And I thought that maybe my talk about how exchange takes over the serve and return relationship, and especially exchange for money, would show that it is bad for us psychologically, because it takes us away from the mode of giving and receiving. And I don't think that it could actually be used. I think exchange itself is the problem, and using money as the standard of value for exchange is the problem. So I believe we have a level of psychological repercussions of these things that we do, that we don't have any idea that we have this level of repercussions, and that those also, make us sick, make us agree to things that are wrong and that are hurting us and everybody. So I really think that having that standard of money that we don't even recognize what it is kind of, it has a kind of an aspect of being a word. And I call it, excuse me, those of you that are Catholics, I call it the incarnate word, because it is like just an abstract thing that has come and been made physical. And now we're about to disincarnate it also as Bitcoin and stuff. So we've created this mysterious physical concept placeholder, if you like, that is hurting us without our knowing it, and not out our knowing how. So I think we need to absolutely not have money.
Thanks, Jen. Ria asks if you can, in the comments, asks if you can speak again quickly to your point about neuron mirroring.
Oh, yeah. So in the 1990s, some researchers in Italy were brain researchers were studying a monkey that had electrodes in its brain, and the researcher started eating something, and they saw that the neurons in the monkey's brain that corresponded to eating something got illuminated. And so what happened is that they began to experiment on this, and they saw that when one person or one animal sees somebody else doing something, the neurons, the corresponding neurons in the monkey or other person's brain activate in correspondence with that same kind of action as if they were doing it themselves. And that is what they call the mirror neurons. And it's a way that people know what each other is thinking and doing. It's unconscious or subconscious, but still it's a way that we tune into each other physiologically. And that I think is a good completion of our idea of how we know each other. Yeah, and one of the other things that is studied in early childhood studies is mind reading, where each person thinks about what the other person is thinking and tries and understands what they're planning to do, like if they're planning to go into the other room, or if they've haven't seen something being, they've done so many experiments on this. I won't go into it, but basically they expect what the other person is thinking. And that's part of how we communicate with each other, because that's how we know what other people need to know, because we know what they don't know. Anyway.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana?
Yes. From Lynn Fairfax, relating to gift value and sort of egoic gift value, where someone feels affirmed by getting money instead of being affirmed by receiving the given, receiving. Can people shift out of sense of affirming from money?
If they know what's happening. If just like any other habit, I think. And if you get if you get affirmation in other ways, if they know that they're getting an ego boost because they're getting a gift, and that they are continuing something that they had when they were little and then possibly lost, and that's why they get greedy for that kind of affirmation. Yeah, I mean, if we understand what we're doing, we can change it. If we don't understand, we're just stuck.
Okay. Thanks, Jen. Liliana, are there other questions there?
Yes. Well, there's some comments, there's some interesting conversation going on in the chat. And Patricia Hurd said, thank you. This makes me think of the beautiful book, The Myth of Normal by Gabor Mate. Normal, another mainly unconscious used term expressing all sorts of processes. And then Bob Reckhouse says, and we don't want geoengineering. And then Patricia replies, exactly, Bob. We need to clean up our poisons and rubbish and give Mother Earth and nature the space to heal naturally, instead of shifting symptoms like we do with most medicines that do not reach the roots of our illnesses. And then Judy Ashby says, we have moved to such an extreme within the exchange economy, causing such disparities, and the traumas are so constant and consistent that most people assume it to be normal. Yeah. Just a comment. I just think they're very interesting comments.
Yeah, and that's true too. That's why I really think that there needs to be some kind of a collective understanding and discussion. I've been thinking, how could we possibly do that? I mean, you could do it with some kind of computer help to connect some of the different opinions with each other or something. But I think we need a big collective big think. That's what we need to do. And a change in values. You know, if we all change our values towards gifting, then we're going to stop doing all the awful things we're doing. But right now, we don't have that. We're all at cross purposes, each one competing with the other, trying to make their own way. It's a kind of a wasteland in which each one is trying to survive, especially men. And especially capitalist men, and especially people in the government and people in corporations. And corporations themselves that have gotten the values of capitalism and incarnated in them.
Yes. Well, Jen, one of the things that it brings to mind for me about what is normal, what's normal in the exchange paradigm, the market economy, the moneyed economy, which is in the foreground. We want to bring the maternal gift economy, normal, which is in the background, to the foreground.
Exactly.
That's really what's normal. That is what it means to be, a homo donon, but really what it means to be a being on planet Earth. So we want to bring the maternal gift economy back into the foreground.
Yeah,
That's
and then we're okay with other species. We're not going to be marauding, taking the lives of and livelihoods of other species either. So we can fit with nature rather than dominating it or destroying it.
mm-hmm.
Or,
Absolutely. Liliana.
Yes, there's a question, a comment and a question by Mary Claire. I love how you say, if we understand ourselves this way, perhaps we can act this way. Perception seems even more key to behavior change than attempt at persuasion. The mention of the concept of what's normal a few minutes ago, in addition to your mention of the Bitcoin discarnation, got me thinking about this in light of Gabor Mate's latest book, The Myth of Normal, Trauma, Illness, and Healing in a Toxic Culture. Wouldn't it be cool to catalyze the necessary shift of consciousness for gifting to be a universal laughter contagion of how absurd it is to be trusting in something now almost entirely invisible, as money is becoming?
well, yeah. So because you can do gifting at every level, visible, invisible, verbal, mother's milk, whatever, or even making peace with between countries at war and things like that. So yeah, I'm sorry I haven't read Gabor Mate's book, but I think he's one of the greatest people that are now on the earth.
He is a great thinker. I didn't read it, but I did listen to it. I checked it out from my local library. So I want to encourage everyone to get a library card, because you can listen to many books and check them out, read them as a gift, actually. So it's free and quite available. And yes, wouldn't it be great to have a guided meditation taking a journey from the market economy back to the gift economy? We need to find someone who wants to do that, who can do that for us. We'll help produce it if anybody knows someone who would be willing to work with us to do that. Wouldn't that be great? We could put that up on the website. All right. I see that we do have one volunteer. Amber, I'm going to reach out to you. She says, I want to do that. Okay. So I'm going to find you. All right, Liliana.
Yes, from Margaret Nanley, how would gifting impair competition?
I don't really understand that. I think that when everybody has enough, and that would come from gifting, competition would not be necessary, because people who are competing are trying to be better than one another, and therefore get more kudos, the gifts of kudos, or the gifts of material gifts of some kind. So I think that competition would be much less necessary. In our society, in capitalism, everybody's competing with everybody else, and you have to be first or prominent in order to survive a lot of the time. So it's really survival of the most competitive, not necessarily the most fit. Yeah, I think that competition would diminish when a gift economy, a maternal gift economy actually happened. Although, you know, there are societies, gift economies, where the greatest giver is supposedly the most important person. And they do competition in gifting. So, you know, that has been tried as well. And in potlatch, Native American potlatch.
Amber Michael just put the word potlatch in the chat. She must be doing the mind reading, Jen, that you mentioned. I would like to add that if you do take the opportunity to watch the video, I did put a link in the chat. Gay Bradshaw mentioned that survival of the fittest myth has been disputed and proven wrong many times now in these last years. And it really is survival by cooperation, not the fittest. And it's that notion of we need one another. You know, the maternal gift economy is not something that you can do by yourself. You know, it's done in community. It's not a singular event. You can't be a solo gift economy person. It doesn't compute. Doesn't work that way. All right, Liliana.
Yes, I have a comment from Amber Michael to everyone. I've heard so many people justify exchange as what happens in nature, and it is frightening that such a profound falsehood is the standard thought. Any comments on that, Jen?
Well, I think we justify exchange in so many ways, you know, and yeah, that's the lens. People use the exchange lens to explain things to themselves. And in fact, it's a false lens. And we have it that fits over our gift lens, and we don't see that, we don't use, or it gets distorted as we're looking through the exchange lens. And so, yeah, so we do a lot of distorting things. We misname all kinds of things. We call lots of things exchange that are actually gifting, and maybe gifting things that are exchange. So even the relation between mothers and children, it's called an exchange. And this interaction is called an exchange between mothers and children. And so by using the wrong word, we hide the truth to ourselves, and we need to find a way of being alert to gifts and call gifting by its name, and not call it exchange or some other term that might be around to use. Yeah, and yeah.
Thanks, Jen. Is there more, Liliana?
Yeah, I have a question from Elena, and I'm translating. So she says, why do you think that corporations run by humans that make money by creating products that destroy the earth do not think about the damage to their children and grandchildren's lives in the future? For example, corporations that create plastic industry that is poisoning the earth.
Well, you know, they had that judgment some years ago that corporations are people and that they can operate as if they were individuals. And actually, you know, they're not people. They are organizations that have as their goal making the most profit possible. There are people that can do that too, but corporations are a combination of lots of people that have that as their goal, and they want they are single-minded in that, and maybe they even have to be in order to survive. And so they do invest and make money in all kinds of damaging things, and they have become international, and they go doing damage in other countries as well as our own. And it's just the fact that they can be treated legally as if they were people is very dangerous and damaging. And I think, well, we just should really change the law on that. It would be a little step forward. There's a group trying to do that, and you can contribute to it. But the fact is that all of these things that are good initiatives, like contributing to changing this and that and the other, really don't, in the end, they don't really change them, and certainly don't change them fast enough. You know, I mean, the whole legal system doesn't change things fast enough. And when it does, it changes things in the wrong direction. So because it's all bought out, all the Supreme Court, as you all have seen, has been bought out, and all of the other powers that be, our governmental powers that be, have been deeply influenced by money being given to them. And so that is a perversion of the gift, is the giving the money to people in government to get them to do what you want. And it's just everywhere in the United States, and in a lot of other countries as well. And in the countries that it's not, we got to try to go buy them out as too. Our
Here.
That's what we do. We send our agents to go and undermine their government.
Oh dear. I'm going to just read this comment that Amber put in the chat. So the subtle distinction is that the person is respected for not having the most, but for giving the most.
Yeah, like in Potlatch, that was the case.
Mm-hmm.
But there is also, the thing is that you have to have somebody that's at the top of the pyramid in some way. And I don't think we need to do that. We don't need to have a person at the top of a pyramid. We need to have a more egalitarian way of interrelating.
I just remembered that Darsha Navarez is producing these short videos, and her most recent one is Reimagining Humanity. So I'm putting a link in that, and in the until we can develop our guided meditation, from capitalist market economy, the journey and return to the maternal gift economy. In the meantime, here's a video that you can and join a discussion with Darsha. I think it'll be beautiful. All right, Liliana.
Yeah, I have another question from Elena again. And she asks, do you think that children that grow up in gift-giving communities like the one started by Angela Dolmetsch are a different type of human than children grown in the exchange world?
I don't know. They certainly have the possibility of being different, but we are all living in the same world now. And it is, even if we come from a gift community, we have to interact with the people that are not from gifted communities. And so our interactive capacities have to take that into account. I don't know. I think, yeah, I think we're all gifting beings inside, and it is better if we could also be in gift communities and share the way we are.
Yeah, I think it was Cheeky who spoke a little when she did her salon, talked about the challenges that the children in her Montessori school, is that what it is? Yeah. So they have the foundational right in early childhood forward, the gift practices, and then they see the world quite differently when their peers that are coming from public schools are trying to do exchange with them. It's a shock, but they can see the difference. So it does help when you begin to instill these values to bring them to the foreground early on. It is quite helpful. And I see that Angela Dolmich is on with us. Maybe she can make a comment to that question about, are the children different humans? I think they're the same humans, but they operate in the world differently. Okay, Liliana.
Yeah, and there's a comment from Dylan Fairfax, and she says, wondering if law ties to ethics, which come from exchange and do not come from gifting. How will that work?
Law? Well, law does come out of the exchange economy, and it's mainly used to regulate exchanges, property, business actions of all kinds. And rather than interacting with each other with the understanding that we're both in it, are all in it for each other's good, we're in a situation where we interact with each other thinking that we're all in it in order to cheat each other and get the most, each one for themselves. And that has to be regulated by a power above them that punishes the people that cheat too much and gives a prize to people that don't. And so that's the way we train ourselves to stand each other in this dog-eat-dog manner that we're living in. But in a gift economy, I would say we might have rules, but we probably wouldn't really. We could, and eventually utopian gift economy wouldn't need them. So down the way. Also, I think the law and money are patriarchal instruments and used to dominate. And so I think those both have those characteristics that we need to not have. In fact, I talk about the gift economy as maternal anarchy.
Yes, we were going to name this salon Maternal Anarchy, but we thought it would be too radical and too
scary.
Would come, yes, scary, and people would come very charged for a fight. So we didn't want to incite
I mean, our anarchy in the sense of law, not having law as its basis.
Right. There was a question that was put into the Q&A that said, do you have Homo Donon t-shirts for sale?
True, we have some. I think we still have some. Who wanted the T-shirt? I think I'm here.
Nathan Fairfax.
Okay, well, if you want to email me or something, I'll try to get you one. Tell me your size.
So,
I have them in a box, a few of them left over.
okay. Any other questions, Liliana?
Yes. There's a question from Dylan. I hope I'm reading this right, Fairfax. And she goes, is accumulation is natural? She's asking. She's curious about that because she's practicing the accumulation.
Well, I don't really know. I think the accumulation depends on how much under stress you are about not having enough. So if you think you're living in an abundant universe, in an abundant place, and you have support in all kinds of ways, you probably don't need to accumulate very much. But if you think you're living in scarcity, you may want to accumulate a lot to protect yourself against the needs that are going to come up.
Thanks, Jen. Liliana?
Yeah, I have a question. I have a question for you, Jen. And how do you think that the situation of the elderly would be different in a maternal gift economy, where today people get put in these places, these nursing homes, that they're basically fed and treated, but they don't have any interactions with other people. The few people go visit them. I have seen that from my mother. And how will that be different if we had a maternal gift economy system happening with the treatment of the elderly, and not be deposited in these places where they're just waiting to die and have no life whatsoever?
Yeah, I think that these big social problems, like what happens to the elderly or differently abled people and so on, would probably be studied by people that are doing the gift economy to figure out the ways that satisfy those people's needs in the best way. And that might be keeping them in community, in communities that are partly the family, or I don't know. I mean, there are probably many ways of solving the problems. Like, I don't know, I saw a video one time about a gay old folks home, and it was really cool, and everybody had a great time. It was, I saw there was a wonderful movie about an opera singer's old folks home called Quartet. And they all really had a common passion, which was opera singing. And so they had a lot in common, and it was a really ideal kind of environment. So I think those kinds of things could be figured out, where people with similar interests could be in old folks' homes together, for example. Or I don't know, I think that the common thinking, the common study of a problem is very helpful to find solutions that are new and good for people.
Wonderful. Okay, I'm going to read this comment from Guadalupe Urbana. Guadalupe, I'm so glad to see that you're here. She's from Colombia. No, she's from Costa Rica. Sorry, she's in Costa Rica. So Guadalupe says, when I heard about the economy of maternal gifts, I was shocked by this proposal to establish another way of relating to goods. Oh dear. Here, I've lost my thread.
I can read it. I have it.
Okay, thank you.
Very soon, I discovered that in reality, the maternal gift economy invited me to review all levels of our society. It was truly a revolutionary and re-evolutionary vision. I work in small communities and belong to a group whose members live throughout the national territory, and our actions seek to do solidarity work and collective well-being. 2 weeks ago, I spoke to them about maternal gift economy, and this sparked a lot of interest because we want to give another name to the interaction of goods, ideas, and knowledge. Maternal gift economy is a normal practice in many of the indigenous or peasant communities that I know. I live in a multicultural and multi-ethnic community, and I think it is very good to have found a word to describe our way of relating, interacting, and sharing, and caring for and supporting each other in all the ways that we can.
That's wonderful. And we who are living in this capitalist society need to use the societies that are practicing gifting traditionally as models for what to do and how to solve our problems that we've created, how to go about living in a different way. So yeah.
That's so beautiful. Guadalupe also loves this term, maternal anarchy. So we want to invite everyone to write to us and tell us what this term, what comes to you when you hear this word, maternal anarchy. We'd love to see it. So, okay.
And the initials are M.A., as in Ma.
Ah, that's right. M.A., Ma. That's beautiful. Liliana.
Yes, another question from Elena. She says, how would climate change be solved by the gift economy? The climate disaster.
Well, I think that first of all, I mean, just the same way any disaster, I mean, anybody would solve this problem, like stop producing plastic, stop producing oil, fossil fuels in general, stop polluting water, the seas. And so that we could, by doing that, we could hold back the most imminent, most terrible things that might be happening. And also we start producing alternatives. And we can do that right now. We should have been doing it already. I mean, we've known about this for many years. And our petroleum companies have also lied about it. They knew, and they didn't say anything, for 30, 40, 50 years. So, lying is really a part of capitalism. And telling the truth is part of gifting. And we're suffering the consequences of that.
Oh, yes, it's playing out on such a global level in global politics, in the corporate world, the multinational, environmental. Even Vandana Shiva talks about how the green economy is using language to obfuscate, to, manipulate thoughts and ideas to try to appear to be good. So yes, it's almost, it is an everyday effort to try to tease out what's the real underlying message. Is it straight to the truth, or is there some other hidden agenda? It's frustrating.
And the same thing with the news. It's the same thing with the truth in the news. You don't know.
Mm-hmm. Mm-hmm. Yeah. Liliana, are there more questions?
There's a comment by Patricia Hurd. Maternal anarchy probably starting to gently shift and tease patriarchal men off track, as we do no longer comply and offer a maternal feminine approach.
Thanks, Patricia. I can envision you out in the world gently shifting men off their track. That's great. That's great. Is there more, Liliana?
I don't have any more questions now.
Okay. Jen, are there other things that you would like to share right now in this moment?
No, not really. I think it'd be fine if we end, but just that we have to do something, just the urgency of it. And it's kind of like a puzzle, you know, if you push in just the right place, you can open it. If you don't, if you push in other places, it's not going to open. And so you have to really understand what's going on in order to fix it, or it's like you really have to understand the disease in order to heal it. So maybe that's a better metaphor. And but I think that the gift economy, the maternal gift economy, which everybody inherits or receives from their mothers who make them survive, we all have it, and it's our common mode of being, and it doesn't get lost as you grow older. It's still there and underneath, so we can get back to it, and that is the hope, at least for me, but I think for other people too. So let's do it. Let's do whatever we can, figure out what we're going to do, and do it. We've been doing these salons and showing that people from a lot of different walks of life understand the gift economy and practice it in a lot of ways. Sometimes they don't even call it that themselves, but it's a way of connecting us all, and we need to be connected. So that's it for me. Blessed be.
Thanks, Jen. I would like to just invite everyone who's in this room, of course, to come back in a couple of weeks. I mentioned earlier that we're going to explore taking questions directly. We're going to switch out the format and go into the meeting form so that we'll be able to have a discussion. It will be Jen and friends. So in the coming days, we'll let you know who else will be there from the international
Feminists for a Gift Economy.
I know, the International Feminists for a Gift Economy movement, and who will be there in the room with you. We've had lots of requests to create a forum like this, so we hope you'll come. And we want to also invite you, if you have your question formulated ahead of time, it'll give opportunity for people to ponder that, who'll be there to respond to it. And you can send your questions to maternalgifteconomy@gmail.com. All right. And that will give people ample opportunity ahead of time to think about your question. And until then, I want to just thank Genevieve.
Thank you.
Yes, for really being able to be available to us. I know you're in the heat of writing. You have, a couple of articles that you still need to finish and talks that you're going to be presenting. I did put a link in the chat where Jen will be presenting on October the 28th in, is it Berlin or Munich?
Munich.
In Munich. So you can find that there. I've made note of the people who volunteered to help us do this maternal gift economy guided meditation out of the land, making our way out of the maze of this patriarchal market economy. And I want to thank Liliana for, switching back and forth from the chat to the Q&A to bring questions forward, and Diane for always holding this space for us. We're really looking forward to seeing you all again in 2 weeks on Saturday, September the 30th. It's almost shocking. This is our 52nd salon. So we are really thrilled. I do see that there are more people who are talking about the maternal gift economy. So that is exciting. And not just talking about it, we're inviting you to come with your questions so we can discuss them with you. So please join us in 2 weeks. And until then, take really good care of yourself. Happy belated new moon for those of you who are of the Jewish faith and culture. Shana Tova. Peace, everyone. Be good to one another and be kind to one another. Bye for now.
Bye, everybody.